The image or the analogy is often used of a screen in a movie theater, and that the film of our life is being projected onto the screen, and that the screen is considered akin to, in this analogy, it's considered akin to consciousness or awareness. And the screen remains unaware of itself. It's flooded by and overwhelmed by all these images being projected onto it. And that self-realization is effectively the screen realizing itself as the screen, as an empty background against which thoughts, emotions, sensations, and all the perceptions of the external world are being projected onto. And it's attaching itself, but now it realizes what it is, and so it detaches. It self-realizes. It becomes conscious as itself, as this awareness. There's another way to use this analogy, and especially remembering it's just an analogy, and when it comes to what awareness is, analogies always fall short, because analogies try to make something visual and tangible so that they're understandable to the mind. That said, this analogy of the film and the screen can be used in the following way. Instead of thinking of the screen as consciousness, we can think of the screen as the mind. And actually we can think of the mind as a theater. If you step into a movie theater, or a movie theater, and then there's on one end, on one wall, there is a screen. And this can be seen as the mind. And the purpose of the mind is to reflect, to capture and reflect the perceptions of awareness. And on the one hand, we can think of awareness as the light coming from the projector, and it's passing through this film of our life. And that film includes our internal world, our thoughts, our emotions, our sensations. And it includes the whole external drama and story of our life. And the light of awareness is passing through this film, and it's being then projected onto the screen of the mind in this theater. And again, in this analogy, what happens normally is this light is unaware as itself. It's projecting these images onto the screen, and it believes it is these images that it is seeing. And it is even oblivious to the screen as just a screen. It doesn't see the mind as just a mind. It starts to establish a feeling of I on the screen and in relation to all the images that are being projected onto it. And then when we hear about the idea of awakening or enlightenment or self-realization, what happens is awareness, this light of awareness, starts to back away from the screen a little bit and back away from these images. It's as though it now comes off of the screen where it was attached, and it sits in the front row of the theater. But it's still very close. It almost has its face right up against the screen, you could say. So even though it knows it's not the screen, it's trying to operate from a position where it is aware of itself distinct from what it is seeing on the screen. It is still very close. And then gradually it starts moving back even farther in the theater, back to the third row or fifth row or farther. And now awareness is becoming more firmly established as a feeling of the witness in the mind, or the observer in the mind, watching thoughts, watching feelings, watching sensations, watching all of these as they come up on the screen, or as is often said, as they arise, as they appear. And then eventually, over time, and maybe for some people instantaneously, the witness moves all the way back to the back of the theater, to the farthest back row, and eventually realizes itself as this light in the projector room. It's actually coming from the projector. And it realizes that there was never anyone sitting in the theater. There never was this I, this feeling of this person of I sitting in the theater watching the thoughts and sensations and feelings. There was just awareness. And it was just, this awareness was just perceiving everything and gradually becoming more conscious of itself as this perceiving. So there was the theater in fact was always empty and is always empty. There's no real identity in the theater. There's, in fact, along with the images being projected onto the screen, there was this hologram, this sense of I, this holographic feeling of I was also being projected into the theater. But in fact, it was just a hologram. It was just an illusion, just an image in the theater of the mind. It's also possible to realize that there's something beyond the light that was casting all these images onto the screen of the mind in the theater of the mind. There is a source of this light, and there is just being. So, for example, when we are aware only of what we see on the screen of our mind, we are aware, our awareness is aware of what it sees. And then slowly, as it backs away and starts realizing itself, it becomes aware of being aware. It becomes aware as the perception, not the perception of what it perceives, but as the perceiving. But there is a step beyond that where instead of being aware of things, and instead of then becoming aware of being aware of things, it becomes aware of being. And this is the source of awareness, realizing itself, the source of light. Before it became light, being aware, conscious as being, just being, without relation to anything, without perceiving anything, but just the self-recognition of being.